Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hi there, everyone. Welcome back for another show. This week, I'm going to take a look at the astrology of the week starting August 12th. We have the magical moment of Venus Cazimi happening on Sunday. That happens on Sunday, August 13th. And then midweek on Tuesday the 15th and Wednesday the 16th, we've got a couple of different activations involving the planet Uranus. In general, it looks like an exciting week with lots of sparks and breakthroughs. With both Venus Cazimi and a new moon, both of those are astrological events about a reset or a fresh start. It's kind of like a doubled up, fresh start, new beginnings energy. The new moon will be in Leo, and that's on Wednesday, the 16th of August. So between the Venus Cazimi and the new moon, it's almost like there's a burst of freshness and renewal coming out of the cosmos this week. So it's a great week to refresh your routines and maybe connect with some new inspiration. In today's show, I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Venus Cazimi. Now, Cazimi is a funny word. You may or may not have heard it before. It's a technical term that refers to a really specific and very special type of conjunction that a planet will only make with the sun. There are actually three different kinds of these special aspects or conjunctions that a planet can make when they're near the sun. There's Cazimi, there's also something called combust or combustion, and there's something else called under the sun's beams. I'm going to talk about the Cazimi today because it's relevant for the astrology of this particular part of August. But just in case you're interested in more on combustion or under the sun's beams, I do have an astrology webinar called Purification and Power, Sun Conjunctions, that will give you all the info you need to understand combustion and under the sunbeams and how to work with it. Now that webinar, Purification and Power, has 7 5-star reviews on my website, and I'll share the link in the show notes below in case that's of interest to you. So this Venus Cazimi thing, it's basically what we symbolically understand as Venus entering the heart of the sun, kind of bringing in the embrace of the sun. And it is technically a conjunction, an exact conjunction with the sun, and it does happen right in the middle of her retrograde. It also happens when we're halfway between Venus retrogrades, but that's a story for another time. So this Venus Cazimi, where Venus is retrograde conjunct the sun, does mark the middle point of the Venus retrograde. And this is a very potent and powerful signature of unification, and that is the Cazimi that we're talking about. Now, when a planet is Cazimi, which is exactly conjunct the sun, it's considered empowered and influential. The theory that we're taught is that this is like the planet having the ear of the king, the sun being a planet that represents that sort of regal, kingly or queenly type authority figure. So a planet Cazimi is in the embrace of the sun or in the embrace of the king or the queen and empowered because of that proximity, if you like. So in general, Cazimi is considered a strengthening placement for a planet, and it can release all kinds of insights and emanations about Venus kind of out into the ethers. Now, technically speaking, Venus will be Cazimi the sun on August the 13th at 20 degrees of Leo. Now, just to get a little technical on you for a moment, there are 2 different definitions of when a planet is Cazimi. The most common, or maybe the definition that I personally learned first, is a definition that became popular during the medieval period of astrology when a planet is within 17 minutes of the sun, so really close to the sun. But I've also since learned that there is an older definition of a planet Cazimi when it's within a degree of the sun. So, like a lot of things in astrology, there is a little bit of a debate as to exactly the boundary markers of a planet Cazimi. But by either definition, Venus will be in this Cazimi state on August the 13th. Now, when a planet is Cazimi, so when Venus is Cazimi at the moment, it is going to be invisible. So Venus has been invisible for a few days already and has got at least another week where she is not able to be seen. So when we think about a planet Cazimi, it's important to understand that they're working in those liminal intangible spaces because they're not working in the realm of the tangible or the seen. So when a planet goes Cazimi, so when Venus is Cazimi, it represents this symbolic process of purification, as if the old is being burned away and there is a freshness or a deep cleansing, a purification that kind of wipes the slate clean. As part of this purification process, Venus also gets what I think of as her new mission statement. A planet that meets with the sun is like a planet that is meeting the divine source, because that's what the sun was considered to be, the source of divine wisdom. You could imagine that if you had a meeting with a divine source, you personally would be inspired, you'd be touched, you'd be moved, and you'd be changed. And that's what Venus is going through as she undergoes Cazimi on Sunday. She is really close to divine wisdom. She's receiving insight. She's getting her new mission or her new messaging for the next chapter. And she's being changed and moved and inspired by that encounter. So the day of the Cazimi, which is Sunday the 13th, that day might bring insights, new awareness, as if you too have been touched by the divine. You might get clear on something that's really important, or you might better understand why you love what you do or why you love the way you do. And this insight of the Cazimi can take many forms. So just take note of any bright ideas or breakthroughs that happen as if by chance on Sunday. Now, Venus is the main planet to do with relationships, to do with self-worth, to do with love and beauty. And so with Venus Cazimi, the insights on offer are most likely to do with relationships, to do with your own sense of self-worth. Like, how much do you actually love and appreciate yourself? These insights are also likely to be about love and friendship and all kinds of relationships. And they'll have something to do with pleasure and beauty and enjoyment and leisure. The whole kind of art relaxation space, that's all represented by Venus. So you might want to take in these insights or really pay attention to the visions or the kind of flashes that come on Sunday the 13th. You know, images and flashes are very much connected to the fire element. So you might get an instinct, like a visceral feeling in your belly. There might be this sort of spark of something that pops into your mind. Or you might just get a flash of an image or a picture, you know, like a brief dreamscape moment. However it shows up, you want to make note of it and pay attention to it. And those insights or that sort of new awareness, that shift in perspective that Venus is kind of taking in on the Sunday, they may in turn help you make a meaningful change in an important relationship. Now, when I talk about Venus going through this Cazimi purification process and getting her new mission statement or her new kind of operating guidelines for the next cycle, some of those are going to have to do with her morning star phase. And Venus, as I think I've mentioned in a previous episode, she does shift from being evening star to morning star. And it's going to be a little later in August that we actually see Venus as morning star. But the moment where that transition begins is at this Cazimi Sun conjunction. And so this idea of Venus getting her new mission statement and it having to do with the morning star phase or the morning star Venus themes, this is about independence. And so this shift in perspective, this new awareness or this kind of divine knowledge that you're getting may have a lot to do with confirming or affirming your personal priorities, what is it that you want? What is it that gives you pleasure? What is it that you think is beautiful? That's really this, this morning star of Venus is so independent. It's very focused on the self. It's not to say that we're going to become egotistical or uncaring individuals, but we're going to maybe figure out ways to do a better job of honoring and celebrating our whole full selves, even as we relate and partner with others. And that moment of the shift in perspective or the questions emerging, that's going to begin at this Cazimi. So, in addition, the insights that Sunday might bring, so they may be about relationships and love and beauty and pleasure, but they might also be a little bit specific to some of the Venus topics in your personal chart. And so they may be specific to the topics of the Leo house, which is where the Cazimi is happening. So if you have a Leo 10th house or a Leo midheaven and this Venus Cazimi happens, this may actually have more to do with career and life direction insights for you. If you have a Leo second house, which is our money, cash flow, and income sector, then this Venus Cazimi and the insights and the renewal and the fresh perspective may be more about your budgeting and your finances and your spending. So if you know your chart, think about the topics of the Leo part of your chart, getting that renewal, that more independent, what's going to be right for me approach. The other parts of our chart that may be infused or inspired by the wisdom of this Cazimi are the topics of the Taurus and Libra houses in our chart. They're the places and they're the topics that are ruled or governed by Venus. So as Venus gets her new mission statement, she's going to feed that down into the Taurus house and the Libra house part of our chart. So if you have Taurus or Libra, say on the 5th house, one topic associated with the 5th house is children, for instance, then this insight of Venus Cazimi may be about matters to do with children or grandchildren, or even matters pertaining to fertility, if that's the part of the journey that you're on right now. So with this Venus Cazimi, you might be really infused with wisdom and insights or get those nuggets of knowledge about not just those classic Venus topics like relationships, love, and self-worth, but also about the topics of the Leo part of your chart and the topics of the Taurus or Libra parts of your chart. Now, I've mentioned that Venus is going to be invisible when she's Cazimi, and any planet Cazimi will also be invisible. So this is a bit like Venus having a secret meeting with her higher power. Like it could be you've had a secret meeting with your higher power, but you're not immediately ready to share what that meeting was about yet. And in the days and weeks following the Cazimi date, you'll slowly start to live the wisdom or express the insights that have come to you under this Cazimi conjunction. And that'll show up by you doing things like shifting your choices, changing up your routine, and maybe behaving differently with your loved ones. So the key point here is that Cazimi happens on August the 13th, and that's the day that is like a download of wisdom or insight or that shift in perspective. But we don't necessarily start doing anything with that right away. We might need a few days, even a couple of weeks, and then we start slowly bringing that wisdom out into our life by changing our habits, our actions, and our behaviors. And if you're having trouble relating to that concept a little bit, I can tell you a little bit of just a very simple story about how this happens to me sometimes. Not that I get more Cazimis than you, but I just had a thought of a personal experience that is kind of like this. And what that means is, sometimes I'll have a really intense, really deep or really insightful therapy session or a really potent healing session with a practitioner. And it's so rich and so poignant and so touching that I come out of that session and all I can say to Peter, or if a girlfriend's there and we're meeting up after, all I can say is like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I've realized so many things, but I can't actually yet talk about it all because it was so profound and so poignant, because I'm still digesting it all. I'm still integrating it. My insides are still figuring themselves out based on this new wisdom or this new understanding that I've gained. And then a few days later, sometimes the following week, I can slowly start to put into words, as I've had time to kind of let it all marinate, the things that have become clear or that I've realized as a result of that therapy session or that healing experience. It takes me a little while to kind of put into words what has shifted for me or how that's helped me make sense of things. And that's what this Venus Cazimi is like, that you might get a realization or you might kind of come home to yourself in an empowering way over this weekend around August 13, but you might not necessarily be ready to share it or to act on it yet. So if you are lucky enough to be blessed with some divine guidance under Sunday's Venus Cazimi, let it sit inside your heart for a while before you do anything about it. When you're ready to share it or you're ready to act on it, it can certainly help you with solving a problem in a relationship or figuring out how to add more pleasure and joy to your life. So there's lots of really special and kind of sparky insights available, but you don't have to be in a rush to do anything about them. So that is Sunday's Venus Cazimi. We only get one of those every kind of 9 to 10 months. So it's really lovely to be able to share that info with you. Now, if I pivot to looking at what else is going on astrologically this middle week of August, we're looking ahead now to August 15 and 16. And we've got a very dramatic new moon in Leo that's coming on Wednesday, August 16. And part of what makes this new moon so dramatic is that it does form a tight square to the planet Uranus. Now, Uranus is in Taurus, but it's really just the energy of Uranus being very strongly activated by this new moon. And that adds a lot of heat, it adds a lot of drama, and a huge amount of energy. There's a lot of restlessness coming out of this new moon in Leo. Coincidentally, on the same day as the new moon in Leo, we've got a trine aspect from Mars in Virgo to Uranus in Taurus. So there's this big infusion or activation of Uranus midweek. And I want to talk about those Uranus themes just so that you have a sense of what's going on astrologically as the week brings perhaps some of its surprises or excitement your way. Now, Uranus is the planet of change, of innovation, and of rebels and revolutionaries. When Uranus is strongly aspected, like it will be on the 15th and 16th, you might feel restless or unsettled. You might kind of feel out of sorts with yourself or your regular routine. Responsibilities can seem restrictive, or you might be really impatient to make change or to create progress. If life has been a little bit routine lately or a little bit kind of, super consistent, maybe some of you are thinking, oh yeah, it's been a bit boring. You might notice that boredom kind of setting in, or you might find yourself wondering about these kind of wild ideas for a radically different kind of life. I'm not saying you have to make some radically major changes this week, but some of you are probably going to. And it's actually a really good thing to pay attention to what you're curious about when Uranus is active. And these clues, whether they show up as interest and fascination, or whether they kind of show up as frustration and boredom, they can show you what's missing from your life. They can also kind of point you towards, oh, I need some more of this. I need a little bit more excitement, a little bit more freedom or space. Or they can point you towards things that you need less of, maybe less duties and deadlines or less restriction. These activations to Uranus and what emerges for you as they're going on can literally kind of point you towards where you're overdue for a change or a reset. And so one thing as you're listening to this to take away is this is a great week to make a change, to shake something up, to experiment, to try something new. It's not really the best week for sticking with your tried and true routines or kind of fallback options. Uranus loves spontaneity. And so one of the best things you can do this week is to be a little bit spur of the moment. Like, oh, let's just do this. I know that's not what we planned, but let's just go for it. You might change your mind, or impulsively, you might do something totally random midweek. The funny thing with Uranus is sometimes those impulsive choices or those random things, they actually come from a really authentic place. And one way I think about what's happening when Uranus is active is that I think about we're almost getting like a direct line into something core and genuine and individual for each of us. And that part of us doesn't always have a loud voice in our choices. So even though it can feel shocking or surprising, some of the things that we do or say when Uranus is active, sometimes it's a really truthful, genuine, authentic response that we're just not hiding anymore. So that can be a different way of thinking about it. There is a daring quality to Uranus, and that kind of daring, risk-taking energy can encourage you to play and to have fun, to opt for something that adds excitement or a bit of interest to your life. Since Uranus loves anything new, different, and unexpected, anything that's familiar or stable is not going to be appealing this week. That unexpected or unpredictable quality of Uranus does mean that plans and events might not unfold as expected midweek. Surprises are likely, and you may be dealing with a disruption or an interruption of some kind. Uranus is known, when we say it shake things up, it turns things upside down, that can disrupt the regular rhythm or pattern of things, and it can certainly interrupt, your usual programming or typical schedule. Being flexible where you can help. When I'm working with clients about transits that they're personally having for Uranus, I'll often talk about the power of spontaneity and flexibility as helping you navigate those kind of unexpected developments or twists and turns that can happen when Uranus is really strong. So when we're working with Uranus, or we're in a time period like this week that is really flavored by Uranus, we want to change our perspective of things. And if we are dealing with an unexpected twist or turn, in our path, consider that a little bit of an invitation to maybe be a little bit more impulsive or express your individual choices and preferences. Being authentic is ultimately what Uranus is trying to bring you towards. And if you can see, the changes or some of the upheaval of Uranus as a pathway to more freedom, more independence, more autonomy, you can see that it is working in your favor, even if it feels a bit frustrating or disruptive in the moment. So each of us are going to be more or less flexible based on our own natal charts. You would know, based on knowing your own personality or being familiar with your own astrology chart, whether you tend to be fairly adaptable and flexible, kind of go with the flow, or whether you're someone who really likes things to be structured and planned and you don't do so well with last minute changes. So if you're someone who's got more of a flexible mindset, maybe you have a lot of mutable placements in your chart, then you may just find yourself rolling with a kind of exciting week. If you've got a chart that's maybe got a little bit more fixed placements or a little bit more of a strong Saturn or maybe a lot of Earth energy where you do like a little bit of repetition and routine, this week might be a little more unsettling because it's more different from how you typically are. So we want to think about how we might each respond to this, because some clients and students will say, is this good? Is this bad? It's really personal opinion. Do you like things to happen, spur of the moment? Do you love a surprise? Then you'll love this week. If you're not a fan of surprises, then this week it may be a little bit frustrating or a little bit unsettling at moments. Whatever your personal relationship to change or spontaneity is, this week is definitely going to encourage a little more of that out-of-the-box thinking. So if a weird idea pops into your mind, instead of dismissing it, explore it. See where it might take you. Uranus loves a little life experiment, and this week is perfect for trying something new just to see what happens. If you've been hoping for a chance to kind of shake things up, if you want to refresh or reset different parts of your life, all of this Uranus activity is great for having a go at the new thing that might be a good fit. Just experiment and see where it takes you. If you're enjoying the show but would like to hear even more tips and detailed insights on timing your life with astrology, come check out my monthly astrology guide membership. I share exclusive insights and tips on every aspect happening each week. The membership is a great resource to help you live the astrology day to day. Inside the membership, you'll also get lots of info that is a great resource if you're studying astrology, because you'll learn a lot more about how astrology works. You can explore more about the membership or sign up via kellysastrology.com. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. I hope you have an exciting week. Let me know about what kinds of breakthroughs or new things are coming up for you in the comments below, and I will talk to you next week.